Today in the tips and tricks, what we're going to cover is the best way, the easiest way to determine which valve is running by looking at the electrical solenoid. I'll turn on the timer, run it manually, go off to the water supply, shut that off, and then we'll walk into the backyard and we'll look at the solenoids and see which plunger is. The ultimate goal here is we're going to rebuild the valve also. The valve won't shut off, the water just continues to run and run and run. The only way to get that to stop is to shut off the main water supply to the sprinkler system via the backflow preventer. And that's what we're going to cover. So we're going to cover two things: how to determine which valve is the faulty valve if you're uncertain from running it manually through the timer, and then how to rebuild that same valve to get the water to shut off as it's supposed to through the valve. And here we go. This is an Irritrol rain dial timer. Very good timers. We'll run it manually. We'll go to the run manual position. I like to hit it once to have it run for 5.9 hours. We'll hit manual. Now that system is running. Now we'll walk over. This is the valve that the customer called that won't stop running. It continues to run and run and run. Won't shut off. Although we do have it running from the timer right now just to determine. So here's our backflow preventer. We'll shut that off. That kills the water supply to only the sprinkler system, leaving the water still onto the customer's house. We'll walk over to the backyard where the valve locations are. And from there, we'll determine which valve is the bad valve. And then we'll rebuild that valve, turn the water back on, and turn the timer on and off several times to confirm it's working properly. It's a little bit of a walk over into the backyard here. Give us a minute. Here's our valve box. We'll open this guy up. Now the best way to determine, we got power to it. So we'll look at these solenoids. These are the electrical solenoids. And if it's operating, if this is the plunger that's open and it's not, the plunger is loose inside there. So that's not the one. We do want to take care of this. This rusting is not a good thing. We do want to replace this solenoid and or rebuild this valve as well. But that's not our area of concern for right now. I can hear this is the one. I can hear it vibrating. This is the one. The plunger is sucked in, it's vibrating, I can feel it. So what we'll do is this is the valve that we'll rebuild. We'll cut the wires, make new connections. This is our main lead is this one. This is the hot. Our white wire is our common lead. And we'll cut and make a new connection there. We'll rebuild this valve without having to dig up the valve and cut it completely out. What you'll need to do here is grab a new valve. Easiest way to do this, the most affordable way, is just to buy a whole complete valve and disassemble it and take the old parts out, put the new parts on. These valves are really nice in that they can do a 1/4 inch socket, or you can do a Phillips head screwdriver. I like to use a power drill. I turn it down to a low notch, not on the drill portion, and reverse it. Let's get a little stronger. You don't want to do it, you don't want to have these too tight. If you get them too tight when you're putting it back together, you can strip out the plastic inside that body, and then you would need to then cut that valve out and start all over. Now we'll take this one apart. And these are an Irritrol, the 205 valves. In my opinion, one of the better valves in the industry. We use a lot of these on our installations. They've been very reliable and durable over the years. Now we just take that apart. You always want to make sure that no dirt, rocks, or anything falls in the bottom of these valves. They are very susceptible to that. There's your diaphragm, the spring, and putting this back together, you need to be very careful that it goes back exactly how it's supposed to. That diaphragm, the spring in there, spring goes between your lid and diaphragm. Get your screws back in there. Grab these ones. This little arrow, it goes underneath where the solenoid is. There's a little nipple in the bottom of it. Hopefully you can see that. There's a nipple right there. That lines up in there. Put the diaphragm on. That nipple needs to line up into this hole. There's a series of 8 holes where the screws go. 2, 4, 6, 8. And this is where the nipple for the solenoid goes through. If you get this off, it will not come on via the timer. And when you put this back on, you line that up, you'll kind of hear it and feel it plunge in there. If you just kind of wiggle it around, sometimes they go right in. There it goes. Sometimes they fight you a little bit. Now this is where you don't want your drill set too tight, because you don't want to strip those out. Get one, that'll hold it in place.